Hello, and welcome to episode 13 of the Welder's Wet Dream podcast. As I start every video, I will not kill myself. I will never kill myself. And if I'm found in a way that looks like I have killed myself, it was the government. And let's get right into things. This episode is about frogs. I have recently been researching and exploring the world of frogs, and it's sketchy, to tell you the truth. 1. Frogs never sleep. You can hear them ribbiting the whole night. And these are just categories we're going to get into later. 2. If they're born in water, how do they get to my pool? I find 4 frogs in my pool every single day. Another one, frogs are, they freeze in wintertime so that they don't die. And that doesn't make sense, right? What else? Why do people only eat frog legs and not the whole frog? Maybe because there's wires and cameras inside because they're owned by the government. There's a lot that can be said about frogs. So, let's get into it. If I make a 30-minute podcast only about frogs, this will be remarkable. We'll see if I have to jump into another topic. Okay, so let me adjust my camera so we can back up a little bit. Okay. Number 1, or not in any order. All right. Let's say this is true, that frogs freeze themselves, right? Would make them the only animal that can freeze themselves and then unfreeze when the weather gets warmer and survive and live on. That doesn't make any sense, right? 1, what if at what temperature do they freeze, right? Not known. Do they freeze at the freezing temperature of water? Right? I don't know. And if they freeze, what would stop them from cracking? Anything that freezes can crack because when something becomes frozen, it becomes brittle, right? Also, if they're sitting there frozen, what is stopping them from getting eaten by birds, foxes, raccoons? Raccoons are actually like the number 1 predator of frogs, fun fact. I think pretty much anything that eats mice will eat frogs. So owls, hawks, cats, right? So if you're telling me that they'll survive the whole winter being frozen in one spot, the fact that any frog has made it past winter is crazy. It doesn't make any sense at all, right? So that's just astonishing, right? Also, people say, oh, they burrow in winter and that's how they don't get eaten, right? They freeze underground. How is a frog gonna dig a hole? They don't have thumbs. They don't have strong arms to dig a hole. That's unreasonable. There's no way they can dig a hole. So that's probably the first solid reason, right? Also, what else? Oh, yeah. Okay. Every single day, I find about 4 to 5, most of the time, dead frogs in my pool. So it's not the same frogs coming back, right? Where are they coming from? You're telling me, right? I mean, listen, I'm maybe 7 miles away from a pond, right? 7 miles to a frog is like me going to Africa. All right. So you're telling me every single frog is like the Christopher Columbus of frogs? It doesn't make any sense, right? There's no shortage of flies on ponds, right? I've been to many ponds. I fished a lot in my life. There's always food. So why would they voyage all the way to my pool, right? And then you're telling me they're smart enough to figure out how to get from the pond to my pool, but not smart enough to not die in the pool, right? Also, another animal that is so easy, like lives around water, relies on water, can swim, but yet they drowned in my pool, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? And I'm not the only person who have frogs in my pool. Every single pool owner has frogs in their pool, right? Also, I'm sorry, I'm blanking for a second. Let me crack this open. This episode is sponsored by Pat's Blue Ribbon. This is the first episode they have sponsored. If you are not a gay homosexual man and you're a straight man that loves titties and ass and vagina, drink PBR. Thank you. All right. Back to frogs. Like, first of all, why aren't there frogs in the ocean? There's no such thing as an ocean frog. If frogs like water so much, why wouldn't they go to the ocean? If you ever think about a frog too, a frog is really just a turtle, a small turtle without the shell. They kind of look quite similar. I just thought of that now. They even have the webbed feet, so that does make sense. All right. Where do turtles go in the winter? You never see turtles in the winter. Oh, they can't migrate. Apparently, like they're so slow, they can't walk. So they just like hide in their shell the whole winter. It doesn't make sense at all. It's not like a bear that can stock up on food like quite easily and like overfill its stomach. Like the turtles, I don't see them on land, but they breathe air. So do they hide in the water? But that doesn't make sense because they need oxygen. And even if you're sleeping, you need oxygen. If you start to realize like a lot of this shit doesn't make sense. Right? Birds, as much as I don't believe that pigeons are real, birds can migrate south, right? They don't take half the year off. But turtles and frogs, it makes no sense, right? Back to frogs, it's interesting. So in their voyage, their multi-year voyage to my pool, right? You're telling me they can't have any babies because frogs lay tadpoles. Tadpoles need to be in water to survive, right? Again, weird. How come a tadpole needs to be in water and then eventually it evolves to needing air? There's nothing about frogs that actually makes like any sense at all. Yeah, like they have the hind legs of a kangaroo, but they also like can expand their body like a pufferfish when they rib. And there's so many issues, right? A guy at work said the way that frogs spread is that they attach to birds' legs and get dropped into my pool. That is genuinely the worst reason that's couldn't even be close to being true, that they attach to birds and they get dropped into the water. It makes no sense at all. Right? Again, I never find a turtle in my pool, but I find frogs, right? Turtles and frogs, I mean, realistically, they're the same animal. How can one get to my pool and the other one can't, right? So this kind of also, like, the frogs have these big eyes, right? These big beating eyes. There is a chance that frogs are made by the government. And I'm not trying to go all conspiracy, but they're very suspicious. And going back to that other point I mentioned before, how come you're up early in the morning around a pond? What do you hear? Rivets. Midday, rivet. Afternoon, rivet. Pitch black at night, rivet. They don't sleep. So now you're telling me they don't sleep at all during the summertime, but they sleep the whole wintertime. They get frozen in the wintertime, right? Doesn't make any sense at all. What else? What do they eat? Really, they eat flies. So why do they even need to be in water? If they only eat flies, wouldn't they much be better at it like a farm or something? Also, it's very strange that like a frog being in like a frog is not strong on land, and it's not strong in the water, right? It can't move. I don't know. Like I've seen frogs swimming in my pool. They're not very great swimmers. Like they're not great swimmers. They're actually very slow. And a common fishing lure for bass fishing is a frog, right? It's a frog with a hook in it because that's like one of their major predators. But you're telling me a frog is very slow on land. I mean, I can catch a frog. I'm no fucking Usain Bolt. I can catch a frog just fine. So I can catch a frog on land. I can catch a frog in water, right? So I just don't understand how that they're still evolving, right? Not evolving, but like how are they still like how have they not gone extinct, right? It's so easy to kill frogs. They freeze, right? But yet, have you ever seen a frozen frog on the side of a river? Or like on the side of a pond? No. I mean, I've never even heard of that. And also, do their brain freeze? Or like do they know that they're away all winter? Do they grow? Are they in like a coma? None of this makes sense, right? You don't hear of any frog-borne illnesses. They're just they just exist, but their existence doesn't make any sense, right? And then you have all these different types of frogs, right? Some with sticky hands, like the rainforest frog, and toads, which are just big frogs. But they all do the same thing. None of them, like, the only thing they can eat is insects, and they can get eaten by everything. It doesn't make sense at all. I'm like, I don't want to say it's a government plant, but it just doesn't seem like there's any real explanation to why frogs exist. Like, what do frogs do exactly? Like, I know people say a big reason for bats are they eat mosquitoes, right? And they control the mosquito population. Do frogs control any population? I don't think they're really that efficient at eating things. I think they're more efficient at getting eaten. So, also, it's like that point I bring before. Why do people only eat frog legs and they don't eat the whole thing? I mean, is that the only animal that you only eat the legs? Usually, like the legs of chickens. I mean, most animals, it's all bone. Why do people eat frog legs but they don't eat anything else? Doesn't really make a lot of sense. Also, like, if the government was trying to hide frogs, it's a smart thing to have people dissect frogs, like like obviously those frogs that you dissect in high school are government issued frogs, and they make them look real so that people just don't doubt that frogs are fake. But yeah, um, I'm not gonna go into the Alex Jones route of like that frogs are turning gay, because I just don't think they are real. It makes more sense that they're real than that they are gay. Um, all right. As I predicted, couldn't get a whole 30 out of frogs. Just, they're not real. Oh, okay. So I saw this headline recently about transgenders. Listen, my stance on transgender, if I had a daughter, I wouldn't want one in the bathroom with my daughter, right? But if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. But at the same time, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want my kids taught about it at school, right? But if you want to do it, do it. Anyways, transgenders are starting to act like black people in the 1940s, right? I just like the town of Worcester, um, Massachusetts, like close to Boston, just became a sanctuary city for transgenders. Nobody is beating up transgenders. Like, transgenders are probably assaulting more people than getting assaulted by. It's like I saw this one blue-haired chick complain at this council meeting that what do you call it? That how many of my friends have to die in order for me, for you guys to do something? No transgender people are dying. This is not a thing. Transgender people are shooting up schools. They are causing the problems. No, I don't think anybody is doing anything to harm transgender people. Instead of maybe looking at them a little funny on the train. Like, this has to stop, right? There are people in America that are truly looked down upon, right? Like the Muslims. Did they deserve it? Probably. But people do not look down on transgender people, right? If anything, transgenders look down on people like me, white male landowners, as people who are, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this. This is probably a little bit too political for this podcast. But I don't like people complaining about not getting treated right. I think right now, like if you still put that you're transgender on like a Harvard application, you probably have a 10 times better chance at getting in than any regular mentally sane person. So I wouldn't really consider them endangered or threatened. I think, first of all, most people can't even identify a trans person. They just think you're gay or a lesbian. You have short hair and you want us to call you they? You are not special. And that's what you should be going for. You don't want to be special. Your whole thing is you want to just blend in with society, and then you dye your hair blue. Like that's going to help you blend in with society, right? And you talk weird, and you look like the opposite sex. I mean, you're not helping yourself. I mean, if you go trans, do what Caitlyn Jenner did, dude. Grow out your hair, cut off your dick, and wear a dress, right? And then you'll blend in. It's these people who look like an in-between, and then they kind of go back and forth between the two. We can't let this happen. Ruining America. Like I said, there's not a single person, I think, in America that believes that people shouldn't be transgender. It's just stop trying to shove it down their throats. Right? It's just very unnecessary. Very unnecessary. Again, this podcast is sponsored by Pat's Blue Ribbon, America's beer. If you're a straight white male, drink Pat's Blue Ribbon. Anyways, that was probably too political for the podcast. I admit that. I'm not trying to be on either side of the spectrum, especially not the autistic spectrum, the political spectrum. I consider myself a libertarian. I think the less government, the better. Let's see. Recently, 2 more plane crashes. How many more times do I have to say banned all air travel? This is getting unacceptable. It's not safe to be in a plane anymore, right? And these are not this is not the pilot's fault, right? This is the government doing this. They're trying to ban all air travel without banning all air travel. It has to be banned. It has to be banned. Ban it now. People are dying, all right? And this plane that just got flipped over in Canada, the Delta airline plane, they offered them 30 grand a pop. 30 grand for a traumatic event. That's like saying, hey, let's send you to Afghanistan, get shot at for a week, and then get into a plane crash, and we'll give you 30 grand as compensation. They should give every single person on that plane a personal fucking jet. Some of those people, I mean, I'm a guy who doesn't go on airplanes. Some of those people need to go on airplanes for a living, and you just fucked up their lives. And you give them 30 grand? I make 30 grand in 2 months. 2 months I can make 30 grand if I work a lot of overtime. And you're giving 30 grand to these people. But yet, we give $400 billion to the fucking Ukraine? But these guys get 30 grand. This is Delta, too. Delta is one of the biggest companies in America, and you can afford to give 30 grand. This is not a big plane. It's not like there's 300 people on this plane. I think there was 90 people on the plane, something like that. Give them 250 G's. Let them buy a fucking house. 30 grand doesn't even get you a fucking Honda Civic. It doesn't even get you, probably doesn't even get you 3 prostitutes nowadays in this economy. Sorry, this stuff gets me fired up. What else? Also, fuck this guy Trump, man. He still hasn't fucking taken my tax off my overtime. I'm trying to fucking build a house here. Bought the land already. You're looking at a landowner, 23-year-old landowner. Fuck you. Fuck your mother. This kid did it. I paid off 4 cars. I have 4 cars. And now I own 2.25 acres of land. Okay? And I'm trying to build a fucking house. So I need Trump to take my fucking taxes and shove them up someone's ass. Because my overtime taxes are fucking killing me. And it's really hard to make money. I work 100 hours a week and I'm getting taxed so much. So Trump said he wasn't going to do that. He said he was going to do tariffs and I was going to not pay my overtime tax. And I'm pissed about it. I'm mad. And I don't like to yell, but I'm sorry. What else? Let's see. Sorry, guys, I'm thinking. Let me think. You're seeing a very rare view into the process of what goes on in this fucking Iron Dome temple. And unlike the Israel Iron Dome, nothing gets through nothing penetrates this bad boy. I don't know. I'm blanking. I've been doing a lot of edibles lately. I haven't done any weed since high school, which I didn't do much there. And I think weed is a magical drug. It's really helped me clear my mind and kind of focus more on the simpler things. It also lets you think. Like, that's where I got this frog idea. I was in the car. Listen, I don't recommend this, but I was going to a funeral and I decided to take an edible. Probably not great, not very respective, but it did make it a lot more enjoyable. And my uncle would have liked to know that I enjoyed it. But I did think about this frog thing, right? Which I don't really like. Obviously, you hear people saying frogs are gay and shit like that. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say frogs are fake. I genuinely, this was completely off the cuff. Like, I am the creator of this theory. The Welder's Wet Dream, episode 13, we discovered that frogs are not real. You, me, everybody who's fucking listening to this podcast, we discovered something today, right? We're like the fucking, what are they called? Not architects. We are like the, what are they called? Fuck. We are the, we're discovering artifacts. We're going back in time. We're finding out. You and me here. Both. We're finding out the truth. That's all this podcast is meant to be, is to find out the truth. All right? I want you guys to think. Have you ever see a frog and look into its eyes? Doesn't look like there's anything there, right? What about if the government's fucking lying to us about these frogs? What about that? What about the government are lying to us about everything? That's what you got to think about. You got to think. The government is lying. They always lie. There's two things that go on in my family. We say these two truths all the time. One, you never trust a man in a suit. Two, you never lick a nipple of a girl at a strip club because they let everybody lick their nipples. Those are two things where they have deeper meanings, and they mean individually. One, if someone has to wear a suit, that means they are a little man who is trying to impress. You never want to be friends with someone who's trying to impress you. You want them to know the real you. Two, the licking the stripper's nipple thing is more of a health thing, but also, you're not special, okay? You are not special. You have to define yourself, okay? Nobody's going to give you handouts. And if you think someone's giving you a handout, they're giving that handout to anybody else. And just like that, we hit 30 minutes together, me and you. And this was the Welder's Wet Dream podcast, title Transgender Frogs. Signing out. And as we end every podcast, I will not kill myself. I will never kill myself. And if I kill myself, if I'm found in my room that looks like I have killed myself, it was the government. Thank you and goodbye.